This week on Jerusalem Dateline, Jerusalem Day, celebrating the time Israel captured the city for the first time in nearly 2,000 years.
Jerusalem is the heart of us and the heart of the world.
Plus, the first Holy Land visit for Pope Francis. Find out who he invites to a historic prayer meeting. And the Jerusalem Covenant, why this city on a hill is so special to the Jewish people. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline, coming to you from the middle of the celebration of Jerusalem Day. What are they celebrating? 47 years ago, the Israeli army captured the city during the Six-Day War. Many Jews and Christians believe it was a miracle because for the first time in 2 millennia, the Jewish people controlled both the Old City and the Temple Mount.
June 7th, just 2 days into the war, Israel had already pushed deep into Egypt, pushed Jordan out of much of the West Bank, and pummeled Syria with artillery fire. Now on day 3, Israel's leaders were poised to do the unthinkable, to recapture Jerusalem and bring the city under Jewish control for the first time in nearly 2,500 years. 1 day earlier, Israel's 55th Paratrooper Brigade had fought its way to the walls of Jerusalem's Old City. Now at sunrise on June 7th, Israel's military command ordered the paratroopers to take the city. They advanced through the Lion's Gate and encountered fierce house-to-house combat along the way. That morning, soldiers reached the western wall of the Temple Mount, the holiest place in Judaism. In nearly 20 years of Jordanian rule, no Jew had been allowed in the area. Military leaders Moshe Dayan and Yitzhak Rabin arrived at the wall, where many of the paratroopers wept for their fallen comrades. Rabbi Shlomo Goren blew the shofar, and Israel reclaimed its heritage in the ancient city. It was one of the most joyful moments in Jewish history. General Moshe Dayan later ruled that Muslims could keep control of the Temple Mount, the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. His decision angered many Jews who had been denied access to their holy places for so long. On the Sinai Peninsula, Israel surrounded the Egyptian army, and the rout of Egypt was well underway. In fact, Egypt's retreat was so chaotic that Israel's advance was slowed by stalled Egyptian vehicles. The same day, Israel's navy reached Sharm el-Sheikh to reopen the strategic Straits of Tiran. In the West Bank, Israel's military victories forced Jordan to declare a ceasefire and withdraw completely from the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria. Israel now had control of cities rooted in Jewish history, such as Hebron, Jericho, and Bethlehem.
In Hebrew, the city is called Yerushalayim, and for more than 3,000 years, it has stood as the centerpiece of Jewish hopes and dreams. Dory Gold is the best-selling author of the book, The Fight for Jerusalem.
The memory of Jerusalem comes up in the wedding ceremony and the circumcision, virtually in all the rites of passing of the Jewish faith, so that when Jews heard on June 7th, 1967, that Jerusalem had been recaptured and now was being reunited, it unleashed an enormous sense of historical longing among the Jewish people worldwide.
Katja Kahaner was a deputy battalion commander, one of the first soldiers to reach the Lion's Gate of the Old City.
I cannot forget the feeling in my fingers straight to my heart when I touched the stones of the wall of the Old City of Jerusalem. And I carry it with me till today.
Eli Adid was 24 years old when he fought to take back the Old City.
It's very emotional. Almost every year I go to a memorial of my friends who fell. And every time we meet, we're excited and emotional once again.
This is the Lion's Gate, where Israeli soldiers broke through to recapture the city. Today, there's a new battle raging for Jerusalem, but it's not being fought with soldiers and tanks. For most Arab Muslims, the loss of Jerusalem was a tragedy. And when they lost on the battlefield, they turned to a diplomatic and media war, one in which they were more successful. The current contention for Jerusalem is not just between Jews and Muslims. Jews themselves are divided about the decision by Moshe Dayan in 1967 to leave the Temple Mount in Muslim hands. Shlomo Gazit was director of military intelligence during the '67 war. He says Dayan was wary of taking charge of a Muslim holy site.
He wanted to minimize the implications of our military occupation. And no provocation unless totally necessary, and to have a military and Israeli flag on the Temple Mount is a provocation.
But for others like Chaim Richman, it was a betrayal for Israeli leaders to leave the Temple Mount in the possession of their sworn enemies.
It's basically a high treason in my mind to take that which is the holiest to the Jewish people and allow it to be overrun by those that are the sworn enemies of the Jewish people and those who embark upon a campaign to destroy the vestige of Jewish presence from that people and steal the legacy of the Jewish people from the world and say that the whole thing never happened. It's a serious situation, and it shows a profound spiritual bankruptcy.
Today, some Israeli Arabs, such as Sheikh Ra'id Salah, demand that Muslims take back Jerusalem by force if necessary. But most Israeli leaders promise to keep Jerusalem undivided and under the flag of Israel.
I think the vast majority of Israelis want to keep Jerusalem united under the rule of Israel because they understand that turning over the old city of Jerusalem to Palestinian Hamas is virtually the same as turning it over to the Taliban.
Since 1967, the secular West has grown more hostile to the idea of Jerusalem as a united city under Israel's control, as it was in Bible times. Gold warns there is danger in dismissing the biblical roots of Judeo-Christian culture.
If the West says Jerusalem unimportant, just a bunch of stones, then they're giving up something which has been at the center of the belief system of their fathers and grandfathers for decades and centuries. And that is a horrible mistake.
In my estimation, the 7th of June, 1967, marks one of the greatest turning points in divine history.
Bible scholar Lance Lambert says that in light of prophecy, Israel's retaking of Jerusalem was a major event.
40 years is generally accepted as a biblical generation. We have had 40 years and Jerusalem is still in the hands of the Jewish people. Now, there's going to be enormous battles and conflict and strife over this, and the prophet Zechariah says it. He says, all nations will come against Jerusalem. We shall see what that means.
Nearly 5 decades after the 1967 Six-Day War, the city of Jerusalem still unifies the Jewish people around the world. Julie Stahl talked to some people here in the streets about what Jerusalem means to them.
Andrea, why are you here today?
I'm here to celebrate with all my Jewish friends because this is a really important and exciting thing.
You know, it really shows the spirit of this country, because to be in an area where, let's just say, not everybody tends to like you, that shows how much they can come together and basically say, hey, here we are, and let the world know about us and come and celebrate with us.
How important is Jerusalem to the Jewish people?
Jerusalem is the seat, it's our history. It's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it's Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. It's where it all started.
This is our history. This is our capital. And this is what the world thinks of us as Jerusalem. And we're going to keep it this way. And we're going to leave it open to whomever wants to come. And we're going to make it bigger and better.
Do you think it's important for Jerusalem to stay together and not be divided?
A united Jerusalem is good for all the 3 religions that are represented here, because to divide it, I don't think you would get the same access that you have now, and I think access is absolutely critical.
Yeah, of course. That's the only way we can survive, if everyone's together.
So you don't think they should divide the city and give part to the Palestinians?
No, never.
Why not?
Because if it's mine, so it's mine. If it's yours, it's yours.
Do you think God helped the Jewish people to reunite the city?
We are the nation of the God, and all the history, God help us and lead us to here, to the state of Israel and to freedom Jerusalem.
Do you think it was a miracle or that God was involved in 47 years ago in putting the city back into Israeli hands?
A friend of mine just lectured to us today at a banquet we had, and he said he was in line in Pearl Harbor waiting to go in to see the wreckage, and he met a man in line who was a professor in the United States War College. And he says he teaches about all different battles in the history of man. So he said, what do you think of the 1967 battle? He says, that's the one battle we don't teach because it was all miracle.
Up next, Pope Francis comes to the Holy Land with the goal of building bridges and bringing peace.
The American Bible Challenge is back. Premiering May 22nd at 8/7 Central, Jeff Foxworthy is ready to play.
The whole family's gonna love it.
Kurt Franklin's gonna sway.
Are you ready?
And you'll see the Bible in a whole new way.
Don't I look chic? That was impressive.
An all-new season premieres Thursday, May 22nd at 8/7 Central, only on Game Show Network.
Pat Boone here with some good news you can trust. Today, our faith, families, and our freedoms are under attack. Polls say 2 out of 3 Americans no longer trust government. A stalled economy, weakening dollar, and politicians willing to steal money from our children to waste on unfixable problems. So, whom can you trust? Well, our money still says in God we trust. But do we? Or have we quietly allowed the things we hold sacred to be stolen by the enemies of traditional values? Today, our government spends almost twice its income, running up a tab for future generations into the hundreds of trillions. How can you stop this from happening to your family? Well, it's all covered in a fantastic new book, The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Dr. Lowell Ponte. Every American needs to read this book. Why don't you call now for a free copy of The Great Withdrawal? It's the simple truth you can trust.
The American Bible Challenge is back. Premiering May 22nd at 8/7 Central, Jeff Foxworthy is ready to play.
The whole family's gonna love it.
Kurt Franklin's gonna sway.
Are you ready?
And you'll see the Bible in a whole new way.
Don't I look chic? That was impressive.
An all-new season premieres Thursday, May 22nd at 8/7 Central, only on Game Show Network.
During his 3-day trip here to the Middle East, Pope Francis made his way from Jordan, Bethlehem, and then here to Jerusalem. He did arrange a meeting between Israeli and Palestinian presidents, but the pontiff also wanted to show that his efforts were more spiritual than political. Here's a look back at his visit. At Israel's Ben Gurion Airport, Israeli President Shimon Peres and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu greeted the pontiff. Pope Francis's visit is the 3rd papal trip to Israel since the year 2000. He came with the goal of building bridges within the church, to other faiths, and bridging the political divide between Israelis and Palestinians. Francis issued a surprise invitation to both Peres and Palestinian Authority President Abbas to pray together at the Vatican. Both accepted and planned to come to Rome in early June. On the last day of his 2-day visit, Francis prayed at the Western Wall and visited Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial, where he met with Holocaust survivors and prayed, "Never again, Lord, never again." One major reason for the visit, signing a joint declaration with Bartholomew, the patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church. It marks the 50th anniversary of the end of a rift between the Eastern and Western Christian churches that began nearly 1,000 years ago. They also express grave concern for Christian persecution in the Middle East, an issue addressed by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Your Holiness, in the heart of the Middle East, the turbulent and violent Middle East, where Christians are often persecuted, Israel is an island of tolerance.
We hope that he also basks in the holiness of Jerusalem and also recognizes the importance of a unified Jerusalem where there's access for all faiths to their places of worship.
During his trip, Francis called for a 2-state solution. That means a divided Jerusalem, since Palestinians also want the city as their capital. Near the end of his visit, Pope Francis said Mass and greeted Christians at the Garden of Gethsemane.
I think he is a man that's going to do much good in uniting the churches.
During his visit, Pope Francis told the Christians living in Jerusalem he understood their difficulties and invited them to be courageous witnesses of the resurrection of Jesus. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Francis Israel protects Christians.
We protect the rights of Christians in Israel. That, unfortunately, does not exist in many places in the Middle East. Even in Bethlehem, where Your Holiness visited, Jesus' birthplace has become a Muslim city.
Netanyahu also referred to the stop Pope Francis made at the security barrier between Bethlehem and Jerusalem.
When incitement and terror against Israel stops, there won't be a need for things like the security fence, which has saved thousands of lives.
On his way back to Rome, Pope Francis clarified his invitation to Israeli President Shimon Peres and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to pray together at the Vatican.
It will be a prayer meeting. It will not be for mediation or to look for solutions. No, we will meet together to pray only, and then each one will return home. But I believe that prayer is important. Praying together without doing any sort of arguing, this helps.
The gathering is scheduled to take place in Rome in early June. Up next, although Pope Francis celebrated Mass in Bethlehem's Manger Square, you probably missed what's happening to some Christians in the city.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
When Pope Francis was in Bethlehem, he said Mass before thousands in Manger Square. Bethlehem is just a few miles down the road from where I'm standing right here in Jerusalem. But according to author Lila Gilbert, it's a world away for some Christians. We talked about her book, Saturday People, Sunday People, and the situation facing some Christians in Bethlehem. Well, Lila, you've been talking to some people in Bethlehem about what it's like there for Christians. What are they telling you right now?
Well, mostly they're telling me that they're having to be very careful about what they say. Mm-hmm. They're really quite frightened. They're afraid that they will be called collaborators with Israel, or that they will be singled out as people who don't like Islam. So they're trying to be very careful, and they're very frightened.
Mm-hmm. Now, something has happened recently which is kind of unprecedented, where a lady named Christy, a young Palestinian Christian, has really spoken out on YouTube. What's her situation like?
Well, she has asylum in Britain because she had to flee. She was threatened by a family member for what she was saying, because what she actually said was that although the difficulties are very great at times, as far as the occupation of Israel is concerned, that if she were the prime minister, she said, I would put up a wall too to keep the suicide bombers from attacking. And this did not go down well.
Right.
She also spoke of an uncle of hers who was assassinated for not paying a tax that was more or less protection money, kind of a mafiosi arrangement. And so she had some stories that were not well received.
Right. And so some of this news has been sort of shrouded. And you made the comment in a Fox News article that what happens in Bethlehem stays in Bethlehem. And so is this sort of like a silence of what's happening to some of the Christians there?
Absolutely. And I think what's changing it is not only the courage of people like Christy, but social media. Because in social media you can send photographs, you can send stories out, and nobody can really blame anyone. You don't have to give sources.
Right.
It's not like a real journalist article. So I think it is making it possible to get the stories told.
Yeah. Now, Pope Francis was there, said Mass in Manger Square, but your point in your article was the fact that these are some things that Pope Francis wouldn't have heard when he was there.
That's right. I doubt very much if he would hear about Christy, for example. Although I suspect that these religious leaders do know some of this, but they have to be extremely careful in what they say and do.
So what is their dilemma? I mean, even Pope Francis, what is the context that he's sort of navigating this minefield?
Well, I think we look back to Pope Benedict and his Regensburg address, which was a few years ago. There were at least 7 deaths following his address. It was a very subtle address, too. He spoke of a Byzantine emperor and something he said about Islam. It was interpreted as an attack on Islam, and there were riots all over. There were many in the West Bank, actually. And there were, I think, 7 people killed. So I think that was kind of a warning to the Vatican of how much can be said. So it's not that they're so cowardly, but they're trying to protect their flock.
Right. Now, one thing that happened in Manger Square when he said his Mass, now there were murals all over Manger Square, and it seemed like the Palestinian Authority was trying to usurp Christianity. What did you think about those murals?
Well, I think it's as much about the de-Judaization of Christianity. In other words, they're trying to remove Jesus's Hebraic roots from his life and from his disciples. And so what they were doing was illustrating his life with a very pro-Palestinian, very anti-Jewish theme.
And are they trying to make or say that Jesus was a Palestinian?
Yes, that's what they're saying. They had him in the manger wrapped in a kiafa. They had Joseph wearing one, and the 3 wise men were popes. So it was quite an interesting juxtaposition.
So this is the kind of atmosphere that many of these Christians, they live and work and
they can't protest, really. They have to be so careful.
Yeah. So how would Christians in the West be able to support them, or people like Christy?
I think we have to pray for them to begin with, but also not being afraid of telling the truth is important for us. Because we're not at risk, and we're not putting people at risk if we don't tell the names of the people that talk to us. But we need to let the world know that this is a very real situation. This isn't just somebody trying to be doing propaganda for the Israelis or this or that. It's not that at all. It's really an attack on Christianity, as well as a removal of Judaism from the story of Jesus.
Yeah, and final question, Leela. You wrote a book called Saturday People, Sunday People. What was the main theme of your book there?
Saturday people are the Jews, Sunday people are the Christians, and in the Muslim world, there's been a complete removal of Jews from many of the Arab countries. There are only about 5,000 left. 850,000 had to flee. Today, the Christians in those same countries are suffering, and they're fleeing as well. And so my message with the book was, this is not a new thing, and it's not a myth. This is really happening today.
Yeah. Well, appreciate your help, Leela, your articles and your book, and helping people understand and expose what's happening around.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, too.
Coming up, the Jerusalem Covenant and why the city is so holy to the Jewish people.
Do you have an idea for an invention or a new product? Brian and Alice Jagosh, the inventors of the halftime drill driver, did. They invented a power drill attachment that lets you drill, flip, and drive in seconds. Brian and Alice licensed their invention to the company that brought you the Snuggie, and it's now selling in major retailers nationwide. Look for the Invent Help Caveman on the package. If you have an invention that you would like to try to patent and submit to companies for possible review and want free information on how InventHelp may be able to assist you, call now. InventHelp is America's largest inventor service company with sales offices in more than 60 cities nationwide. Call InventHelp today for free information. Our clients made a financial gain with their invention, but this is just their individual result. Brian and Alice's experience is not typical, as only a very small number of inventions are licensed or sold in stores.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-559-8567. That's 1-800-559-8567.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than Bosley. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose Bosley.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
It's hard to underestimate the importance of the city of Jerusalem to the Jewish people. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "Jerusalem is our heart." And in 1992, the Knesset signed the Jerusalem Covenant. And just a few days ago, Israel 365, a faith-based organization, gathered more than 23,000 signatures from around the world and presented it to a Knesset member, Dov Lippman.
In the broader world, people don't necessarily understand how important it is for Jerusalem to be the capital of the people of Israel, and a united Jerusalem specifically. And the Jerusalem Covenant is a document which says our connection to Jerusalem is not something which began in 1948 or 1967, but it's well over 3,000 years old, and even before that. And that's the critical statement which this covenant. It's a covenant between the people of Israel and God, and also people of Israel with faith-minded people around the world who understand the depth of that connection. So receiving signatures from Christians from around the world acknowledging that connection is critical for us in Israel. I can tell you, as a member of parliament, I meet with members of parliament from around the world. They don't recognize this connection at all. They see us as the people who came here, and maybe we pushed some other people out of their homeland, and we have to start dividing and separating. And our responsibility is to acknowledge the Christian supporters from around the world who get it and who understand the depth of the connection, and that's what these signatures on this covenant represent.
If you'd like to read the Jerusalem Covenant, you can go to my blog called Jerusalem Dateline on cbnnews.com. That's it for this edition. I'm Chris Mitchell. Hope to see you next time right here in Jerusalem.